All right, guys, let's review these questions. I'm gonna vary my, my strategy between the count forward, count back strategy and the stacking with borrowing and carrying. So to start off with, I have 0.46 plus 0.51. If I'm counting forward on that one, I have 0.46, 0.51. If I have 0 and 0, that gives me 0, 0.00. 4 tenths plus 5 tenths, that's 9 tenths, 0.9, and I'll put the 0 in there. And then 6 hundredths plus 1 hundredth, that's 7 hundredths. So I have 0.97. If I'm looking at B, 62 hundredths plus 15 hundredths, I can stack that one. And I don't think I actually have any carrying to do. If I have 2 and 5 in the hundredths place, that's 7. 6 and 1 in the tenths place, that's another 7. 0 and 0 in the ones place, that leaves me with 0.77. It's a little more complicated. I'm going to use the count forward strategy again. So I have 0.27 and 0.53. Adding those together, I have 0 and 0 here. That gives me 0. And then 2 tenths plus 5 tenths, that is 7 tenths. And 7 hundredths plus 3 hundredths, that's 10 hundredths. So it actually would group in to the tenths place, which would give me 0.80 altogether. I'm going to stack with this one here, but I'm going to use carrying this time. So 0.48 plus 0.38. So looking over here at the hundredths place first, if you're doing the carrying, you have to start to the furthest to the right. So 8 and 8 is 16, so I'm going to put a 6 here and I'm going to carry the 1. 1 and 4 is 5, 5 and 3 is 8. And then 0 and 0 is 0. Don't forget to drop your decimal in where it belongs. And that gives me 0.86. And my last adding question, I'm going to do that count forward strategy one more time. So 0.64 plus 0.59. Okay? I'm going to just show the numbers over here because I'm a little bit out of space. So 0 and 0, that's 0. I'm going to put 0.00. 6 tenths and 5 tenths, that would give me 1.10, right? It's actually 11 tenths. And then in the hundredths, I have 4 hundredths plus 9 hundredths. That would give me 13 hundredths, which would actually be 1/10 and 3 hundredths. So if I put these together, I would have 1.23. And I'm just going to put a square around that because I have a lot of numbers around there to make sure that you see the answer. There's this answer, this answer, this answer, and this answer. Those ones aren't as tight together as E. For subtracting, I'm going to do the stacking, and if I need to regroup, I'll do borrowing. I don't think there's any regrouping in this one here. It's 0.93. If I subtract 0.51, if I start on the hundredths, 3 minus 1 is 2, 9 minus 5 is 4, and 0 minus 0 is 0. I have to make sure I drop my decimal where it belongs, and my answer is 0.42. If I'm doing the count back strategy, 0.68 minus 0.25. I have 0 minus 0, so that's 0. 6 tenths minus 2 tenths is 4 tenths. And 8 hundredths minus 5 hundredths leaves me with 3 hundredths. So that would be here. So I have 0.43. Not a really complicated one to do there either. Oops. 0.84 minus 0.54. I'm going to do that stacking. I don't think there's any carrying to do, or sorry, any borrowing to do, but we'll start over here on the hundredths place. 4 minus 4 is 0, 8 minus 5 is 3, and 0 minus 0 is 0. That leaves me with 0.30. I could just say 0.3, by the way, with that one too. The count back strategy is a little tougher to use on this one, but I'm going to show you how it would work. 0.72 minus 0.48. So in this case, I would say, well, 0 minus 0 is 0. And 7/10 minus 3/10 is 7/10 minus 4/10 is 3/10. And then 200ths minus 800ths would be negative 0.06, 600ths, right? If I was taking 800ths away, it would go down 2, and then it would take me 600ths into the negatives. So what I would have to do is I'd have to take my 3/10, 0.30, and subtract out 6/10. Well, 30 minus 6 is 24. So this would be 0.24 or 24 hundredths. It's a bit tricky when we're getting into the having to do some regrouping to use the count back strategy. I prefer to use the borrowing strategy when I subtract. So for a question like this one, 0.63 minus 0.27, I would look at the hundredths place first, and I say 3 minus 7 is something I can't do without borrowing. So I'm going to borrow from the tenths place. Sorry, I lost contact there. I'm going to take, that's going to become 5, and this will become 13. Now, 13 minus 7 is 6. 5 minus 2 is 3. 0 minus 0 is 0. Make sure I've dropped my decimal in where it belongs. And my answer is 0.36. So there's some review in how to do these questions. Hopefully that helped you. Thanks, guys.